Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. We've been on a break for a couple months, but we are back in the new year with more career journeys of Van Buren graduates. I'm your host, Brian Bratt, and this week's guest is 2004 Van Buren graduate Caleb Etzler, a bank operations manager. In this episode, Caleb shares how a college job led to his career, the unexpected careers in the banking industry, the importance of typing and using Excel in his career, and much more. Whether you are interested in a career in banking or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Caleb shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Caleb, thank you very much for joining us. And I'd love to know, how does a typical day look for a bank operations manager?
That's an interesting question. So the job I was hired for of bank operations is almost what I don't do right now. So
Oh,
it's the what is it? The other duties as assigned clause in the job description definitely comes into play for me. So I do a little bit of bank operations, meaning I help with money movement. So making sure like incoming check files, not going check files process, wires, ACH, which is like direct deposit and withdrawal when you give your account number to somebody um, like your mortgage company or whatever, but making sure all that processes, all that behind the scenes stuff.
mhm.
And so that takes up maybe just a couple minutes of my day because we've also hired other people who I've trained on. Most of my job right now is more project management and product management. So I work with our product team to say, hey, if I was, because I spent 15 years in bank operations and we make software at Q2 for banks. And so I get to be like, hey, if I was a bank, this is how I'd want this to work. And by the way, I did this for a while, so you should probably listen to me on this one because they're going to be asking you for it anyway.
Right,
So I say
right.
it nicer than that, but yes,
So you're that person that makes sure or a very small part of your day now, making sure
hmm
my direct deposit check gets into my account and I can get my money. That's very
correct,
important.
correct, yep, yeah, because people get a little cranky if that doesn't happen
Yes,
consistently. So
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. Do you feel like that's something that's easier now because of everything being on computers? Obviously, my guess is you really didn't experience that, or that's been your entire experience in banking, that
hmm
there have always been computers.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the cybersecurity just adds another level of difficulty, or in the end, are we better off because we have everything in computers?
I think we're better off because we have it. That's a good question. I think we're better off because we have it all in computers. But there's definitely the cyber risk you have to take into account. There's a lot of fraud you have to keep track of,
Right.
and so we have systems designed for that as well to say, hey, this is you know, Caleb just got a $100,000 payroll deposit. That's weird. Okay. Or the opposite would be a withdrawal, though that would definitely not post to my account because there's definitely not that much money in my account. But you see that point of trying to it's good and bad because
Right.
it's automated, and so you have that consistency where things happen automatically without too much human intervention. But you also do have the bad players you got to keep track of too.
Right. 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 When you were in high school, did you ever foresee yourself working in banking? What were your
Ooh,
plans when you were graduating?
that's also a really fun question. I did not. I got into banking in college as a travel teller, which was an awesome job for a college kid because travel teller meant, oh, this branch of this bank, they have somebody on vacation this week, so they need an extra person. So you get to go over there, drive over, get a ton of mileage, by the way, for driving, which as a college kid, they're like, oh yeah, I'll invest that in my future car. Yeah, that's what happened. But the you get to go and they basically gave you the easy job because they didn't know you and know your skill set because you were just trained to do the easy transactions. And
Right.
so after college, I really didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had a degree in business management, but also no experience in it. So just the degree, but no experience. So and that was in 2008, which, if you recall, that was kind of a tough job market. And so I took a lateral move in the bank I was with from travel teller to just back office operations. And so my career kind of took off from there. But no, to answer your question, no, I didn't really see myself in banking. I thought it would be a more stable, and when I got into it a little bit, I thought it'd be more of a stable job market. It turns out I've been acquired, I think like 5 or 6 times.
Oh,
So
wow.
was wrong about that one.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, did not see that. But also wasn't quite sure what I wanted to be when I grew up, even in high school or throughout college.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and business management gave you a lot of flexibility
Yeah, yeah.
with that.
hmm
Were there were there any other business related fields that you were leaning toward before because of the
You
job
know,
market? You stuck with
you know,
banking or
hmm so yeah, and you're right. The reason I took the business management, I think I originally was going to go into counseling, like,
okay.
and then I did a semester of early childhood education, basically like elementary education,
Uh-huh.
and I spent 1 hour in a classroom and was like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I got business management degree just because it had that it was pretty broad, right? So
yeah,
I wanted the flexibility there, and it worked out pretty well. But I really didn't know quite what I was going to get into. So when I went to graduate, I was kind of just, I don't want to say throwing a dart at the wall, seeing what stuck, but I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I could do a lot. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I looked at,
right.
nonprofits. I looked at um, big businesses. I looked at like even college admissions, thinking that might be a little bit interesting.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I stuck with the bank I was with.
Right. Well, and I think your story is very typical that experience helped you figure out that you didn't want to be in elementary education, which I'm right
Right.
there with you. I could
Yep.
never do
Yeah.
elementary
Oh, God,
education.
God bless those people. Yep, I can't
Yes,
do it. Yep.
yes. And then that experience working as a traveling teller, then that opened up doors that they knew
hmm
you. And so again, experience is obviously always really, really important. You've worked for multiple banks.
hmm
Are banks all pretty much the same, or are there differences in them?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. At the high level, they are all the same. They are all dealing with money. They all have to balance everything at the end of the day to make sure that, hey, everything that I gave to Caleb and to Brian and to everybody else as far as a deposit or withdrawal offsets the right account, and that everything is where it needs to be at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Where they get kind of, it's interesting. It's the more the details, the minor processes, where, how do they do their fraud review? How do they more handle things like, hey, if something came into an account that was closed, what do we do with that? Do we try to find a home for that, especially if it's direct deposit,
Mhm.
or do we just, flat out return it? Things like that are more where the differences lie. Um, it's been interesting is as I've worked for different banks, and I think this is something that happens in almost every company. You end up with a lot of times where, oh, we've always done it this way,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
we must keep doing it this way, and nobody knows why,
Right.
except the person that's been doing it for 40 years is not going to change, so we got to work around that. Okay, that's one way to do it, but if we don't know, usually it's there's usually a better way, but it's who, as far as, and this again goes back to probably every organization and company in the United States,
Right.
who's willing to ask that question and make that change versus, okay, well, we've been doing it for the last 30 years this way. What's 30 more? Let's go.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Now, you never mentioned doing an internship or anything in banking, and
hmm
I'm wondering if that was just the time period that you were in school that they didn't do internships, or is that more of a security thing that we can't have a college
Ooh.
student coming in for 3 months
Yeah.
and then learning everything, and then they go off and go somewhere
Yeah.
else. And how does that work?
Yeah. So yeah, there is definitely a security thing, because there is a lot of sensitive data. I think I've become a little, I don't want to say numb to it, but I have access to a lot of information that I have to be careful with.
Right.
But so the idea of giving that to a college kid, I think, would make me just a little bit uncomfortable. But not saying that you couldn't. But for me, I actually I didn't do an internship. I did more of a, if you want to, it might be, you could call it an internship. I was able to do in college. We did, it was, we went on a missions trip down to Dominican Republic for 2 weeks. And while down there, we spent the entire semester before and after working with a organization down there that they were doing more humanitarian work, by a little bit of an interesting way. Instead of just handing out, supplies or funds, nothing wrong with that, by the way. But
Right.
what they were doing was buying coffee from the local farmers in Dominican Republic at better rates than like a bigger corporation might, and then selling that in the United States as coffee. But what that did is they gave them more of a way to earn income in some of the more poverty-ridden regions of Dominican Republic. And so what I did when I was down there doing the missions work, I was also then interviewing and having conversations with different people in the organization, and trying to find different ways to do things better, or at least coming up with different ideas for them to possibly implement.
Hmm.
So if you want to
Okay.
call that an internship, you could. It was actually a lot of fun to kind of have that real world experience,
Right.
and also feel like you were really making a difference, helping, improve people's lives.
Right, right. Well, and yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what an internship is, real world
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
And, again, unfortunately, in banking industry, like you said, a lot of sensitive data that you have to be careful with all of that. But
Hmm.
again,
Yeah.
you got in as the traveling teller, so you were an employee, and even though that was in college. So if someone wanted to get into the banking industry, maybe doing something like that while in
Hmm.
college, getting
Hmm.
employment, that could basically take the place of that internship. So
Hmm. Yep.
very interesting.
Yep.
As you think about your career, you've had multiple positions, and like you said, you've been a uh, uh, operations manager here for quite a while.
Hmm.
Are there other career options within a bank that maybe people don't consider? I know that some banks have investment
Yep.
arms and things like that. Are there other careers that maybe people don't think about maybe having in a bank?
And there's the obvious answer of, there's an accounting department, right? Who knew that one? Was it going to be in a bank? Also, fraud department to watch out. And so, you kind of have an interesting, I've worked with people that are like former law enforcement,
Oh,
that are now in a fraud department of a bank. From my perspective, when I started working at a bank as that travel teller, I thought that all of the things that the operations team did was just, it happened by magic. I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought to how did people's payroll post every day, how did all of the wires that we send over, how did those go out the door. Those are people that are actually, the operations team in the background are doing that, and they're happy to be in that background most of the time. They don't want their name out there because, frankly, if their name is known, that usually means they had to get involved in something,
right.
that was something bad happened. If But there was also a lot more work on, and I relied on this pretty heavily as that travel teller when I was getting going, is branch support. Very few, they every branch has a number they call if they get into something like, oh yeah, this customer came in with this paperwork, or this is the situation, something obviously went wrong here. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And so you also have that for, there's a whole department for, actually two different departments, one for what we would call business banking, and one department for more retail or consumer. Basically, you and I as people
Right.
are banking, because those accounts behave very differently, and there's a whole lot that goes into both of those. And so, but it's more of a, both of those areas. It's interesting because it's almost a almost a retail business where, you know, um, customers, the bank is in business to make money. It's not just there to hold money for customers,
Right.
although that's what they do. And then they issue loans off of that. But there's a whole business strategy that every bank is going to have too. And that was very interesting to me to kind of realize, oh, we're not just holding everybody's money, we're actually doing this with a purpose. That's interesting.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
all I would say that was the one that probably surprised me the most. And I think that it was a lot of fun to kind of learn how that works and to see, how the whole thing comes together. But to answer your question, what are some areas that people might not think of? I think that would be my answer is more the business side of the bank, with strategy, and then also the different departments of personal versus business accounts and how
Right.
those guys interact.
Yeah, so a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
If someone doesn't want to be a bank teller, like you said, standing out
Hmm.
there in front of everyone, there's a
Hmm.
lot of things that a person could do.
Hmm.
As with every job, there are positives and negatives and
Sure.
challenges. What do you say? What would you say are some of the best parts of your career, and what would you say are maybe some of those challenges that someone who wanted to get into the banking industry needs to be aware of?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say for me, the best part has been I've gotten to work with a lot of different people and been exposed to a lot of different things, and so being able to learn from people that I've worked with has been really amazing. And I think that goes back to that experience. It's not just job experience; it's also experience working with people with different ideas and thoughts that hey, you might disagree, but that's okay. Let's come up with the best idea here. And you also learn a little bit too, which is crazy. um, the the downside I would say is I've gotten to work with a lot of different people just because, not just because, but because I've my bank has been acquired or sold or merged quite a few times, and so the downside to that is every couple of years you're like, oh, do I still have a job? Like, how are we doing
Right.
this? So because I'm a bank operations manager, they've got one too. You don't need two of
Right.
us. So how
Right.
are we doing this? And so
Right.
sometimes it's been, hey, yeah, we're I've been severance a couple times, but I've also been, hey, you're going to get to keep your job. There's also been, hey, we're going to actually move you into this different role too. So it's really, any one of those three is an option. So that's the downside is, of course, oh, do I have a job? That's the scary part.
Right.
But
Right.
the on the plus side, you do get to meet a lot of different people, and you get to wear a couple different hats, so to speak, because um, either you're keeping your role or you're changing your role a little bit. But either way, you're going to be doing something a little bit different.
Right, right. Now, if someone wanted to get into this field,
Hmm.
what advice would you have for them educationally? Is business management, is that the degree to get? Is it
Hmm.
finance? Is it something else? Or does it really not matter too much as long as you're willing to learn and once you get
Yeah.
in there?
I think it's more as long as you're willing to learn. I've worked with people with, college degrees, master's degrees, even a couple of doctorate degrees. I've also worked with people with high school education. Um, I think it comes down to willingness to learn, because just because you've got that degree doesn't mean that you're willing to learn.
Right,
And so for me it was interesting because the one class I think that helped me the most in my career wasn't in college. It was actually in high school. It was my typing class,
oh,
because we
yep.
learned how to type, of course, but that was like 2 or 3 weeks of the class, and it was a whole semester class. The rest of it we learned how to use like Microsoft Office, like Word and Excel. And so one of the things that I've been able to do in my career is use Excel a lot to mine data out and find, oh, hey, this is what we're working with. One of the banks I worked with, when was we were having to send letters to customers, like 10,000 customers for something that happened, and I looked at what they were doing, and they had an Excel sheet of all the addresses. They also had a Word document that had the letter, and they were literally copying and pasting from
Oh
Excel
gosh.
into, so they were manually making each letter 10,000 times. And I remembered back in that typing class, we did something called a mail merge. And I'm like, hey guys, can I take a crack at this? Just give me a half hour to try to remember how to do this.
Right.
And then, I started printing them. And I remember one lady started just crying because she's like, oh, this is so amazing. And I'm like, this is okay. Let's just, sure. So I think, but it's being willing to learn and also
Right.
apply yourself where, like in that case, that wasn't necessarily in my job description. I just saw a need and I've tried to fill it. And so I
Right.
think for me, that's been my career is, oh, there's a need here. I might be able to help. Can I help?
hmm Well, we offer an Excel for Everyone class now.
Yes. Oh,
So
that's
we
awesome.
have
Okay.
an Excel only class because we know how valuable that is in the business
Yes.
world. So,
Yes, it absolutely is.
so
So,
that's good to hear.
yep.
As we wrap up and you look back at everything that you've learned over the
hmm
course of your career, what do you know now about careers that you wish you had known when you were in high school?
It comes down to people, in my opinion, where if you don't have people, it most of the time it doesn't really matter what else you have. If so, you've got to be able to build relationships with people you work with within your own area, as well as outside of your area, as well as outside of even the company you work with. That's called that'd be called networking. Um, but you can be the smartest person in the room, you can have the best process, the best whatever, but if you're a jerk to work with, really doesn't matter.
Well, Caleb, I really appreciate you sharing your career journey, and it's great to see you doing well. And
Oh,
still
thank
remember
you.
you playing on my junior high basketball team when I
Oh,
was not a very good coach, very
oh, whatever.
inexperienced,
No,
and
dude,
so forth.
well,
But
no, no. I still look back on that. I still look back on that fondly. I
yeah,
wouldn't I wouldn't grade yourself harshly on that one, Brian. You were exactly I think what we
uh,
needed you to be. So, and I don't care about experience at that point. It was fun. That's all that
well,
matters.
good, good.
So,
I'm glad you had
yeah.
fun. Thank you very much, and good
Mhm.
luck as you continue your career journey.
Hey, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.